This is WFYI News Now. It's June 6th, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, a former virtual charter school leader agrees to plead guilty in a multi-million-dollar fraud case. Indiana brings back A to F letter grades for schools, but what happens to schools that fail in the system remains up in the air. And a paramedic at IU Health is suing the hospital system, claiming he was harassed and retaliated against because of his sexual orientation.
I felt that I was being punished for being honest and different.
Those stories coming up. But first, U.S. Representative André Carson is seeking information on how an Indiana military base could potentially be used as an immigration detention center. In a letter to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Carson lists several questions about using Camp Atterbury as a temporary location for Immigration and Customs Enforcement detainees. Camp Atterbury, just 30 miles south of Indianapolis, has historically been used as a training base for the Indiana National Guard. Carson says in his letter that repurposing it as an ICE detainment center warrants an examination into the, quote, negative impact this will have on our national security and military readiness, end quote. As ICE detention has sharply increased nationwide, Carson also raised ethical and legal concerns about using the camp as a site for detainees. He asks for responses to his questions by June 13th. A former administrator of two now-closed Indiana virtual charter schools has agreed to plead guilty in a multi-million-dollar fraud case. WFYI's Eric Weddle reports.
Federal prosecutors say Percy Clark helped inflate enrollment at Indiana Virtual School and Indiana Virtual Pathways Academy, bringing in more than $44 million in state education funds. As part of a plea deal, Clark will serve probation and home confinement but avoid prison. He will also have to pay restitution. The virtual charter schools abruptly closed in 2019 amid investigations. Prosecutors say the school leaders collected funding for students who were no longer attending and some who never logged on at all. Two of Clark's co-defendants are scheduled for plea hearings in July. I'm Eric Weddle.
Indiana is bringing back A to F letter grades for schools, but what happens to schools that fail in the system remains up in the air. From WFYI's Education Desk, Rachel Fredette reports on how state education officials plan to hold schools accountable.
The State Board of Education is revamping how a school's performance is measured on an A to F grading scale. Now, state education leaders say the next school accountability system will align with the department's plans that seek learning beyond academics, like work-based experiences. The plan is due at the end of this year, but conversations about chronically failing schools remain off the table for now. Katie Jenner is the state secretary of education. She says she will work with state lawmakers to determine what happens when a school fails to perform.
So we have to look at current statute to determine if there needs to be any adjustment ahead.
Schools have not received A to F grades since 2018. I'm Rachel Fredette.
And for our final story today, a paramedic at IU Health is suing the hospital system, claiming he was harassed and retaliated against because of his sexual orientation. WFYI's Farrah Anderson reports he says supervisors failed to act after he reported workplace harassment.
Cody Halstead works as a paramedic at IU Health Lifeline, a critical care air and ground transport program. He sued IU Health earlier this year in federal court, alleging that the hospital system discriminated against him because he is a gay man. Halstead says his managers retaliated against him after he reported his coworkers for bullying.
I felt that I was being punished for being honest and different.
IU Health denied these claims in court filings and said that the corrective action Halstead received was for a good reason, not related to his sexual orientation or complaints. IU Health also asked the court to dismiss the case before it goes to trial. A spokesperson wrote in a statement to WFYI that IU Health denies any unlawful conduct, but declined to comment further because the case is ongoing. I'm Farrah Anderson.
That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by Drew Daudelin and Zach Bundy. with support from the news team at WFYI and public media journalists across the state. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. Kendall Antron produced our music, and I'm your host, Abriana Herron. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back on Monday.